Welcome to Coffee and an Interview. I'm Jacqueline Pena, and I'm here today with Temante Leary, founder of Class Updates, an ed tech startup. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here with you. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I've followed your journey for a little bit with Class Updates over the years, and have been impressed with the development of this tool. And I thought we can start by let's tell people what is Class Updates first, and then we can tell them why you started this particular startup.
Sure. So Class Updates is, we're a startup company, but we also have an application, a mobile communication application for teacher and student communication that was essentially created out of frustrations from students not receiving notifications and important information about their classes. So, in order to address that issue, Class Updates was birthed. And essentially it works by, the teacher or professor will create their class, have the students join the class or subscribe, as we call it. And then at that point, the teacher will be connected with all of the students who subscribe to the class and able to communicate with them via push notifications to any mobile device in real time. So that's kind of how Class Updates works.
Nice. And I think when we were talking about Class Updates and when I played around with it, there was a particular audience you had in mind. So in terms of a mobile app that sends push notifications and keeps the class engaged, what was that age group or particular setting that you were looking at?
Yeah, so we're focused on mainly the higher education space. The more, I guess you could say, older, mature learner, as opposed to, like the K through 12 space. We also have, so in our database, we have every high school, college, and university in the country. And so we do have, I should say, high school teachers also have the ability to use Class Updates as well and to try it. But our main audience that we're really trying to focus on right now is actually the higher education space. It always has been, and in particular with the transition of all of higher ed essentially going virtual due to COVID, it makes the utility and the efficacy of our application that much more important and significant. Not that it wasn't important before, because it's always important for students to stay connected, with their teachers, and teachers to be able to, and teachers to communicate with their students, COVID-19 or not. But essentially, but especially right now, we're finding that, that connection is even more important with the, virtual setup, on the virtual learning only. In my opinion, as many tools and resources as necessary should be used to stay connected with our students at this time. And that's K-12, higher ed, that's, the whole gamut, the whole spectrum of education. So that means that educators need to get creative, need to try new tools like Class Updates in order to do that. And obviously there are other tools and resources out there as well, communication tools, engagement tools, beyond just kind of the traditional ways that have been used. I think right now is a really good way or good time to try some new tools and try some new things in order to foster that engagement and to keep keep students in the loop. They need to feel connected, and they need to feel like their communication is not, going down some black hole.
Mhm.
So, so a lot of isolation and a lot of, loneliness and withdrawal, things like that. And I think class updates could even address, those issues in certain ways as well. Again, just with the ability to send positive reinforcement messages, the ability to, make sure the students are, if they don't have any questions, and if so, that, you're able to, address them in a timely way. That's one of the ways that educators that have been using class updates, that's one of the ways, one of the reasons why they find it really convenient and why they like it, is that, students can essentially ask some questions, that maybe they didn't ask in the class, or, pretty much right there in real time. And they can, just like respond right, right there, using the app, as opposed to having to go into LMS and uh, post an announcement or see if there's any messages from the students, or, check the email, which is fine. You don't have to do that anyway. But again, the, kind of the real time communication aspect um, is the benefit over, like, email, or
Mhm.
obviously when it comes to text messaging, that's real time too. But again, texting involves, phone numbers. And, sometimes students and educators don't feel comfortable um, with that. And it's just a lot. It's a hassle for me to have to keep up with 25 different phone numbers every class. So
Mhm.
that many phone numbers, and store them, and this, with their name, and okay, this is this person's number, this is this person's number. It's got to be a better way. So that's a big headache. So it's about efficiency too.
Mm. You bring up so many interesting points. I want to start with engagement, because we know positive engagement experiences lead to long-term retention, persistence, completion. And even in my own study, 10 years ago, and I'm doing kind of a revisit of the study, hopefully it'll be coming out by December, looking at engagement and student success. I was looking at generation 1.5 specifically, but all students. Faculty, that connection with faculty was one of the top relationships that really helped with persistence, retention, persistence, completion, and also with peers. And class updates here is a way for me to put in that personal touch as an educator and reach out to students. And I thought that was very interesting that you talked about engagement. You talked about loneliness and withdrawal, and something that might help students through that process, because you're constantly engaging them, communicating with them, not in an announcement, not in a big post, not in a social media. I'll get into that in a bit. Message to everyone, but literally like, hey, it's Wednesday, just checking to see how you're all doing, and just a reminder that the papers due Friday. If you need anything, reach out and I can meet with you virtually, for example. So I think that that's great. But then you also mentioned positive reinforcement messages, and I feel like we don't give enough of those out to our students. In class, you got this, but we had to pivot with COVID-19, and things are different, and we're not used to doing that positive messaging outside of the classroom. And sometimes we just need to hear someone say, our teacher say, you can do this, you got this, here's a tip, here's a tool. Hey, I just realized that if you use this, it'll make your citation page easier. You could tell I'm a writing teacher, but those things I think really help. And again, feeling connected and addressing questions in a timely manner. I like how you talked also about COVID-19 and our changing needs for our students. It's not that we weren't communicating with them virtually in some way before. It's not that we weren't emailing, using the LMS announcements with push notifications. It's just that our students are used to being in the classroom 2, 3, 4 times a week with us. Maybe only once a week, but for 3 hours, and they're not in the classroom with us anymore. So for those students who are used to being in a physical space with other students and the teacher, I think this has been extremely difficult. And class updates is one way, one kind of tool that can help us bridge that and make us feel like we're connected on a daily basis a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. And for that matter, I even started to allow my students to, just depending on the assignment, um, submit their work, because you can't attach files and, documents and things like that. So it's also convenient in that way. Depending on the assignment, I can just say, hey, go interview 3 people about, you know, their management, their leadership style. For example, I'm teaching a class right now, and actually a leadership class right now. But and they'll have the ability to actually, if I allow it, right, they can attach the assignment using the app as well, and it's easy for me to see, who's done the assignment, be able to view it, just by opening up the chat essentially, where and mark them off as assignment complete. So there's other benefits as well. And then of course, you have the ability to chat, right? So not only can I send updates to my class, but I can also do individual check-ins, by chatting with my students and chat with each other. So there's that camaraderie, which is also important right now. Their ability to be able to chat with each other, to be able to chat with the professor. Of course, the chats are private. They're only between the person and whoever is in the chat.
That's great.
So, don't have to worry about anyone else, being able to see that communication. But, again, that's, and the same with the students who chat with each other. It's between the students. But again, that connection, being able to stay connected about classwork or about the class in general or about assignments in a kind of, I guess, a safe place, a safe space. Being able to have that communication, you're right there in the app, and to keep that communication there, as opposed to, not to say there's anything wrong with texting or calling, things like that, but at least you have a way to keep that communication about whatever it is with the class, or you can keep it within the application.
It's scary because so as faculty, I always had a hard time with students seeing me during office hours, for example. So I could just check in and see how they're doing. But when I was full-time faculty, you have 5, 6, 7 classes that you're teaching, and so you can't meet with students between classes because you're running to another building to teach your other class, and you hope that they'll come see you during office hours. And that's not necessarily the case. I would hold papers hostage, like you can't get your paper back unless you come to my office, that kind of thing, to try to get them to see me. And this idea of office hours and this traditional way of engagement with faculty, I see especially with COVID-19, it's taught us so much, but I see that breaking away finally, that old school system of engagement. And I'm wondering what things like this will do for institutions when they look at, well, you have to have 10 office hours to see your students. Your students aren't going to office hours. There are other ways of engaging. So it'd be interesting to see how the world of academia, in terms of some of those rigid structures, shifts, because our students are not looking for that. They want to sit with you sometimes, of course, but there are other ways of communicating and working together that they prefer most of the time. So here's a tool that will help with that shift, but is also forcing the shift, a much needed shift than that rigid structure.
In large part, definitely. Yeah.
And then the other thing is, you and I are both in Florida. And so I was thinking, so one of the notes I just wrote while you were talking was hurricane season. I have such a hard time communicating with teams and students before a storm hits, once a storm hits, after the storm passes, and just saying things are okay, classes are canceled. I know they get some notifications from the schools, but sometimes they just need to hear from the professor, hey, don't worry about that paper that I said was due Friday. We'll extend it till next Friday so we could get through the storm. And hey, just checking to make sure everyone's okay after the storm. And this is a nice tool for that too.
Yeah, when we've first, launched in 2017, not long after we came out in July, there was a hurricane. I can't remember the name of it, but a few months after we launched, and we saw a nice spike in usage at that time. When we were first early on, due to what you were saying just now, as far as it being a great tool to keep teachers and students informed during during the natural disaster, during the hurricane, as far as classes being canceled or when classes are back open, et cetera. Um, and being able to get that communication beyond just an email or however the students communicate.
There's another form of communication. Let me jump into the next question. We've talked a lot about class updates and what it does, and a tool that we can use to enhance student engagement, which enhances their success in higher ed, and how we can use it through COVID-19, but also through natural disasters. And I guess I'm applying it to a lot of the situations I face every year, right, living in Florida. But looking at an app like this, what is the future of class updates of this app and this tech startup?
So we want to grow and continue to develop our application, in more robust ways. Obviously pending, funding. We are a startup, so this is, we do have plans to hopefully fund and do a crowdfunding campaign in order to raise capital soon. So that's part of our future plans. And then, with that, use that seed capital to grow our team and the company, especially first and foremost in the area of development, further development. And we would like to incorporate artificial intelligence, AI. That's always been a goal. And so that's, again, when it comes to development, that's something that you definitely could see us leveraging the power of AI with class updates. And there's multiple things that we could do. We're flexible as far as the capabilities, but definitely see artificial intelligence down the line, in some way, shape, or form. We also, we plan to, we want to be one of the main avenues for communication when it comes to, the higher education space, or the more, I guess, the older learner. There are ways to to do that in the K through 12 space. You have your class dojos and ed modos and Remind and things like that. But when you get into the higher education space, you don't really see tools such as ours. What you do see is you do have institutions that are doing their own apps on campus that may function similarly. A lot of times, what I've seen is they aren't that popular. A lot of times for whatever reason. But most campuses, they'll have kind of like their own version, kind of, I've seen, right, of class updates. But then at the end of the day, that's not all campuses and not all schools, right? And there's a lot of institutions that do need our technology, especially talking about HBCUs, which is a huge focus for us, which is historically Black colleges and universities that traditionally lack the resources and the funding that PWIs, which is, using acronyms here, private white institution, which I attend, University of North Carolina was a PWI, is a PWI. But, you know, so would like to really see more and more HBCUs, you know, utilizing our app and other technologies. And I mean, not just HBCUs, but in particular, you know, again, we're talking about a level playing ground, level playing field when it comes to technology, resources, and programs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's where HBCUs you know, kind of fall behind a little bit. And, you know, we need to make sure to keep that, to keep it competitive, right? And make sure they're competitive and keep the playing field level. So, you know.
But that's a great point too, because you have some universities that might have the funding, the people, and the time to create their own app to use internally, even though I don't think that that's a good use of people and time and money when you can outsource, in essence, when you can find something that you can retrofit to your institution that you can use. But then, you know, those are your big schools, and then your many schools like HBCUs, they might not have the resources to do that kind of work, and yet really want or need to engage students in a different way. And so then you have apps that allow for that to happen. They don't have to find the money and the people to build it and then troubleshoot it and then implement it and then do the updates to it and the upgrades. But you can use something this. So it's a tool that really does level the playing field for a lot of institutions and for students. So definitely. I want to say there are a lot of listeners who are interested in starting their own businesses or startups, or are potentially app developers, or who have dreamed of this or thought of this. And I wanted to point out some things that I noticed that is really helping you succeed in this venture. All right. So you have a clear audience in mind. You had a clear purpose, not just a passion, but a purpose. You saw that there was a need, and you're addressing that gap or need directly, clearly, authentically. You're saying, here's the need, here's how we can, fill that need, how we can address that need. And you started out, some people might say, oh, that's too slow, it takes too long, but you actually built very quickly, I think, since you started in 2017 and you have a growth plan. You started somewhere and you've been increasing your users, increasing the knowledge, and you have a growth plan. You have an idea of where to go next with it. And I think that clarity and having that purpose and being very specific about the need you're serving really helps in the success of a venture. But it takes a lot of sweat and tears and time. I know it's a lot of work, but these pieces of the formula, these ingredients to this recipe, really help make the venture more successful. And I thought that was a great thing to point out for listeners who might be interested in exploring this kind of journey.
Yeah. So, you have to be resilient. You have to have a lot of resilience, and, you have to, you're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of people that may not believe in your vision or what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You have to have conviction, and you have to, be confident in what you're trying to do. Right. Mm-hmm. You're trying to solve a problem, and you have a way to do that. And, every idea is not going to be, viral. It's not going to, be a hit overnight. It takes time. It's not easy. And, that's the one thing that me and my team had to realize is, like, we're at about 7,000 downloads right now, which is respectable. I mean, is it 70,000? No. But that we can't let off the pedal, because of that, and it's unrealistic to think that, that you create something and in a few years, 70,000, 100,000 people will have downloaded it. It's just, there's tons of apps, tons of them. And so, that being said, we've gone through ups and downs, but you want to have a solid team, a clear vision, conviction as far as what you're and what you're doing, and just keep your kind of, like I said, just don't let off the gas. Keep the pedal to the metal, if you will. Find creative ways to get your message out there. Use social media. Use as much free marketing. Social media is all. You want to have a presence. You want to make sure to have a social media presence. Get out there, get in front of people, present, pitch. People have different feelings about pitching. So if you don't believe in it, then that's okay. But you do need to get in front of people and share what you're doing, pitch your idea. And like you said, it's important that you're actually solving, addressing a problem with whatever you're doing, that you're actually addressing the issue, and trying to, and trying to solve it. So, that's kind of my, I guess, preliminary advice. There's also going to be, you have to be, I said resilient, but you also have to be flexible when it comes to iterating and testing and tweaking and bug fixing and changing, different things as far as the user experience and then on the back end. That takes a lot, testing across devices, across platforms. If you have a hybrid app like we do, just, Android, iOS, listening to your customers, getting good customer feedback. Those are the things that have gotten us to where we are, to this point. And, hopefully we'll be able to get on a crowdfunding platform.
Yeah.
Where people can invest in class updates for, as little as $100 and help get us to the next level. And also realize a good return on their investment as well. If we, when we get to where we want to get. So,
I like that, sharing those success stories.
People really can really do well, actually, investing in the right crowdfunding campaign. $100, $200 can turn into thousands of dollars, especially if you invest in the next Uber or Lyft or whatever that next thing is, right? Class updates. You get in early and you get opportunity. So look for that. Hopefully, again, all of you will have the opportunity to invest in class updates for probably something as little as small as $100. And, the next time or one of the next times you bring me on, we'll be hopefully talking about our crowdfunding campaign and involved and how people can invest and become owners and, get equity in the company. So.
And here's another thing you're teaching us about is crowdfunding in the tech startup world. So that's very helpful for anyone listening and thinking about at startups, or tech startups, I should say. I said at startups. The other thing I know, you and I had talked a little bit about challenges of having a tech startup, especially when it's an app. Challenges with money, with time, but we also talked a little bit about challenges of being a founder of color in a white dominated app world. So what are some of the challenges of being a founder of color in a white male dominated app world that will help some of our listeners as well as they're jumping into these different ventures? And
just
that's a difficult topic. I know it's a
yeah,
big shift,
there's
but it's a new challenge.
yeah, no, there's a lot of challenges. I mean, a lot of times you're the only one in the room. You're the only, you know, uh, one at the conference, or one of the only ones, right, at the conference or in the room. For example, I go to a lot of ed tech conferences and education conferences, and um, in capacity as a founder, I find myself again. I'm one of the only ones, in the room, right? So there's a lack of inclusion and obviously access to resources that I should say, as far as people that look like myself, and then just being taken seriously. Um, a lot of times you're not taken serious, because you're a minority, or because you're, the only one. So it's almost like, what are you doing here? Or how did you get here? Or, you know, uh, and a lot of times you have to work 10 times harder, just because, so that's a challenge. You have to have thick skin, if you will. Um, and, just, you know, having or finding founder friendly investors that are actually focused on investing in underrepresented founders like myself, or minorities, is one of the main challenges as well, because with that traditional landscape, traditional investor, they're not focused on investing in, oftentimes they're not focused on investing in minorities or underrepresented founders. So that's kind of, that's systematic in a lot of ways, that it needs to change. Mm-hmm. And there are venture capitalist VCs and angel investors that are more founder friendly, and that are actually focused on underrepresented founders and founders of color. Like, for example, Brian Brackeen and Candace Matthews Brackeen are, an example of what they're doing with Lightship Capital. And they just raised $50 million, dollars to do just that. So I think they did a $25 million raise and like a $23 million raise or something like that, but it's right at $50 million. And the whole mission of Lightship Capital and Brian Brackeen, who's a friend and a colleague of mine, is to invest in underrepresented and minority founders. And so we need more investors like that. I think they just announced an investment a couple of weeks ago, their first investment, in a young Black man who's got an awesome startup. Can't remember exactly what it was off the top of my head, but things like that are issues and things that we need to see, and things that need to change. So, of course, there's more. We could talk about that all day, but that's kind of the you want to say short answer, to that question.
And that complicated landscape of venture capital. Yeah. Any advice for, this is a critical thing, because there's so many challenges that you face. You're trying to create a startup, a tech startup. You're trying to address a need that people might not listen to you about that need, or they might. Engagement, I think, is extremely important, but not everyone has the same beliefs we do about the importance of that. And then challenges, because you're still working within a very white dominated adventure area, the app world itself and the tech startup. And so there's so many challenges, and you've been very persistent with your purpose and really serving that need. And I'm wondering if you have any advice for our listeners, whatever the challenges are that they're facing in trying to start a new venture. Do you have any advice for our listeners on that end? Additional advice, because you gave us some good tips earlier too.
Don't be afraid to reach out. Hopefully you have a mentor, or don't, try to find one. and don't be afraid to have a mentor or somebody to help you navigate through, the things that you're going through. Probably it would be good to have someone who's kind of been there and done that. So someone who maybe had success in business, who's failed, who's succeeded, who's already gone through the things that you're going to face. And so, a lot, as many, mentors as possible, good mentors, you know, uh, always just, keep a growth mindset, and trying to learn and grow and be better and make your organization better. And like I said, just listen to your customers, and use feedback to help you get better. Don't take it personally, use it constructively, and, just be persistent and believe in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, if don't throw in the towel. It's been times and days where we were like, our team was, thought we should be further along, or, frustrated because certain things didn't work out, or, certain investors changed their mind, or, someone said they wanted to invest and they didn't for whatever reason, or maybe they weren't even really serious. But those things are going to happen. You just have to stay focused, and you have to, don't take it personal. You might get 1,000 no's, but you just need one yes. And keep that in mind, and, keep your eyes on the prize. That's all you can do.
That's some great advice that we can use for a lot of things in life, not just with a startup or an app venture, but wonderful advice to help us stay focused. Are there any other things you want to share that I didn't get a chance to ask you about as we close up our interview? Any last thoughts or words that you might want to share with our listeners?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come on today. Hopefully, I have provided some important and valuable information to those who hear this and the listeners. And, other than the advice I gave, just, now is a really good time during this pandemic, believe it or not, to think of some innovative, creative ideas and try to launch a business or launch a startup. This pandemic is perfect time for innovation. It's spawning a lot of innovation. So that's my only advice in closing, is to use this time to create something great and share it with the world. That's it for me, as far as my advice right now.
That's great advice for all of us. And a lot of these tips and advice will be in different posts in social media, because I think we need to highlight a lot of the points you made. But also in the description for our listeners, we'll have some resources for you along with the links to help you if you're thinking about doing a tech startup, or if you want to learn more about class updates. I'll definitely be there, and information about angel investors and things of that sort. We'll definitely put those resources for you in the description. You'll see that right under the description with the links to the resources. And Temante, I just want to say thank you, because you are really busy with a lot going on. And we didn't talk about all those projects, but I know you're extremely busy, and you took the time out to talk about your journey with class updates and your journey as a startup, a founder. And I think that information is very helpful for many of us, very enlightening and empowering. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
I enjoy being here. I enjoy being on. I'm happy to come on at any time, and you keep doing what you're doing. I love the podcast. I'll continue to support you, and I gotta hop, like you said. I gotta get started with Microsoft, but
yes. But thank you, and definitely keep me updated so I can keep supporting you.
I will, Jackie. Thank you.